Hello there, everybody. I'm Mr. Buddies, and welcome to Test Tube Titans, technically. Now, while I was recording Test Tube Titans, one of the NPC dialogues, the NPC started talking. I'm pretty sure the character is supposed to be a socialist or something, and it led into a discussion about UBI and socialism and the way workers are treated. And it turned into a 20-minute segment. So instead of releasing it as part of the video, I wanted to clip it out and release it as its own thing, just because I'm pretty sure in the video it would have been annoying to see just 20 minutes of me talking about UBI and socialism. So, here you go.
Sick job. I think we did good enough. Do you mind if I ask you something? I've been asking other people around here, and some of them have been weird about it. Okay. Been a little curious lately. I've been asking people how much they get paid, but people don't seem to like talking about how much they get paid. They should be more open about it. I think if anyone stands to gain from all of us staying mum about this stuff, it's probably our employer. No, I agree, actually. If you talk to your coworkers about how much each of you get paid, what you might think is that it'll result in your coworkers going, "Why does he get paid so much?" Instead, what it will generally resolve in is actually your coworkers going, "Why don't I get paid more?" Who knows what kind of disparities there might be they might be getting away with, while all of us are too scared to compare wages. Yeah, but what about the difference between completely different jobs? That sounds... No, both of these are not great. Sounds kind of far-fetched. No, they're absolutely... Like, the person who stands to benefit most from you not discussing your wages with your coworkers is your employer. For instance, if I'm not working as hard as you, but I'm making $2 additional an hour, then you should get paid more. The most, I guess, out of the two of these, what about the difference between completely different types of jobs? I guess this is the most viable out of the two statements here. But neither of them really matter, because, I mean, if you're a machine operator and I'm a janitor, or whatever, I think we can pretty well compare the amount of total labor we put into our jobs. So, yeah, let's just go with what about the difference between two different kind of jobs? Yeah, well, that's a whole other can of worms, isn't it? Absolutely. It's also problematic when you start comparing different positions. I mean, the higher on the chain of command you go, the more money you make, right? How could you do that any differently? Yeah, you absolutely, I don't think you could do that any differently. You should be paid more the higher in the chain of command you are, if you have to be promoted into that position. That incentivizes more long-term thinking. Now, arguably, should everybody in the chain of command be brought up from the bottom? I don't know, because some of the higher chain of command stuff does require specialized skills. Yeah, how could you do that any differently? I guess I'd try to start somewhere that starts scaling proportionately with time, but then again, like, why not just pay everyone the same amount? So I was talking about this previously. The reason you can't just pay everybody the same amount is because it doesn't incentivize skill growth. I don't like this. This is a really bad way of responding. Look, if somebody says, "Why not just pay everybody the same amount?" you don't go, "That doesn't make any sense." You don't just stop at "that doesn't make any sense." You have to explain that disproportionate pay for disproportionate work is actually kind of important. You incentivize the growth of skills, new abilities. You encourage people to get better at the things they do. Is that how corporate structures tend to work right now? Absolutely not. Because, as far as I have seen, the way it tends to go is more loyalty to the company, loyalty to the self. But you should not pay someone, like, if all I'm doing is slotting boards into a machine, and what the person on the other end of the machine is doing is catching those boards and then servicing the machine at the end of their day, they should absolutely get paid more than I do. Because what I'm doing does not require it does not have as high of a skill demand as what the other person is doing. That would absolutely be insane. Nobody would ever want to be on the other end of the machine from me, because their job is just genuinely harder. Anyway, end rant. On the other hand, paying everybody the same amount does incentivize labor to organize itself. This has been an argument from some of my lefty communist-y friends, which is you'll get people to go into skills positions for abilities that they already have. So, for instance, if somebody is just interested in engineering and machinery, they will be more likely to be the person catching boards and servicing machines than me, who I don't really have that specific interest or skill set. So while to me, slotting boards into machines is easier, maybe to them, servicing the machine will be easier. I don't know which end of this is, I don't know which end of this I'm more on side with, because if you pay everyone the same, you don't get skills growth. And if you have pay disparity based on skills, then you don't get the natural organization that where labor organizes itself. I'm actually gonna go with it doesn't make sense to pay everyone the same, though, because I am more on the side of skill growth. And you know what? No, because it does also allow labor to organize itself. Because if a person shows a natural aptitude, you should naturally be paying them more and putting them more in that position. I know it seems kind of crazy, but we've been taught to think so. But like, wouldn't you care more about your job if you knew you were getting paid the same as your boss? Wouldn't you be more invested in the work you would be doing? Not everybody would think that way, though. I guess that makes sense. If I was making the same as my boss, would I care more about my work? That's a really good one. I don't know. See, I tend not to value being in a position of labor. I don't like going to work every day. I don't know if most people like going to work every day, but, you know, this guy's got a good point. We're sort of taught to think that way. On the other hand, work is labor, labor is hard. Yeah, I don't really personally value labor. I think free time is much more important than labor, and even if I were paid the same as my boss, I would actually find that unfair if my boss was being given more value-additive tasks. No, not everybody would think that way. Okay, so a way you can restructure pay in order to make sure that people are more invested in doing a good job is using commission models and stuff. What you can do is pay people by job or by line product instead of by hour. Paying people hourly is like terrible. It's one of the worst ways you could pay people if what you want at the end of the day is value. If what you want is to pay people a livable wage, then the hourly structure isn't as bad, though of course a solid structure, a monthly structure, a basic stipend is a better way to pay people. You know, if everybody needs $6,000 a month in order to be able to live and have a productive, happy life, then you should be making sure that everybody gets paid $6,000 a month. You do not want them getting paid, $20 an hour or whatever it is at 40 hours a week. What we have right now in most of the developed world is a structure that goes between wanting to pay everybody a fair amount and wanting to extract labor value from them. And I think the hourly structure that we have actually doesn't work very well. The paying people by hour, it just sort of feels like bunk in my mind. Wouldn't you be more invested in doing good work if you were paid the same as your boss? No, absolutely not. No, I can't. I don't see that being a good argument. You find someone who is willing to pull their weight, right? For a wage, like I imagine you'd probably have a lot of eager candidates. I'm actually not sure what he's saying here. I know it's not all that easy, but something modeled around a more equal concept would still be better than the exploitative. Yes, absolutely. This I agree with right here. I know it's not that easy, but something modeled around a more equal concept would still be better than the exploitative hierarchies we have now. What you need to do is establish a minimum value within the market. You need to make sure that everybody can afford the basics on a hierarchy of needs. So things like food, clothing, housing, water. You need those things in order to survive. And if you were to be provided those things, you would actually be capable of providing more value in return. It's how value additive services work in real life. If you want to look at a more labor sided version of things, you can pull raw ore out of the ground, and you can turn that raw ore into cars. You absolutely can, but it takes so long and requires so much more labor than it would to take each individual part of a car and put it together. That's why we decentralize the labor there. You know, you have different folks doing different steps. Equalizing stuff better would require that what you do actually, instead of saying everybody gets paid the same, you say everybody, regardless of labor, and regardless of the amount of labor they're doing, gets a minimum value within the market. And that minimum value needs to cover housing, it needs to cover food, it needs to cover water. I would argue, personally, that it needs to cover basic medical services, preventative health care, and care for character-specific disabilities. So, you know, somebody who has vision trouble should get glasses provided to them. Why? Because they can't operate as well without those glasses. Imagine, you know, asking somebody who is farsighted to work at a computer all day, like, but without glasses. Of course, that sounds inhumane, you know, or somebody who generally requires reading glasses to operate ledgers, book ledgers, without their glasses all day. That's absolutely mad. You'll get, not just is it bad for them, but you'll get more value out of them in the long term, as long as they're provided those glasses for free or for cheap. It by giving people intrinsically this value, you also allow employers to pay less money to each individual, although they have to pay higher in taxes. But you wouldn't, in the overall, have to pay as much in taxes per person because of the way taxation works. And, you know, because you have the higher collective bargaining power with centralized funding. Jesus, I'm just going to spend this whole time ranting about money. I'm sitting here playing a Godzilla game and I'm going on about money. To be honest, sometimes I feel like a raise is just a bribe to keep me complacent with paying people lower than me much less. And like, nobody wants to clean toilets, yet the people who do it get paid barely enough to get by. Absolutely, I agree with this one. I once got a 75-cent raise while everyone around me got a 25-cent raise, and none of us noticed. And we were actually the people cleaning toilets. That was my job there. I was part of the overnight sanitation crew, or, you know, the fucking janitors. And we did. We cleaned the toilets, we cleaned the machines in the building, and none of us noticed our fucking raise. And when I raised that complaint to management, I got fired. I was not fired for bringing up the raise to the employer. I don't want to sound like, I don't want to give the wrong idea. I was apparently rude about the way I did it, and I really pissed off my manager. In part because I insisted that, you know, because all the employees were right there, he was free to discuss it with all three of us at the same time. And yeah, he got mad. He got twisted about that. I agree with the sentiment that within a system that doesn't award people their like legitimate minimum value that they need to survive, if you can't get by on your pay, and I would argue if you can't get by and have a little bit extra left over, then you're not working within a just system. Like, if you're paying the people who clean the toilets not enough to afford food, water, housing, and in most cases I would also argue power, electricity, then yeah, you're not producing a just job. You are not creating just labor. And I think that's where a lot of the modern world's problems come from. And then you do get this thing where raises become nothing but a bribe. Oh god, I absolutely love Parker here. This guy's great. Wealth is a little embarrassing. It's like trying to justify that my life should be so much easier than somebody else's. Should it be? Yeah, no one should be struggling to survive. And this is actually a really cool statement here. This is a really awesome sentiment. This is a great political... Okay. I'm actually really interested in how this story goes. Wealth is a little embarrassing. It's like trying to justify that my life should be easier than somebody else's. Absolutely, this is a huge problem. If your life is legitimately just that much better than somebody else's, you need to be providing, like, exceptionally better for society. Like, and it's hard to justify that any individual could ever be doing that. However, I would personally argue that somebody who works in a hospital, while I, as an individual, a low-skilled laborer, deserve a minimum viable... While any person, regardless of labor, requires a minimum viable existence, like, they should have electricity, they should have housing, they should have clothing, they should have food, they should have water. Well, they should have all of these things, and again, potentially a little bit extra to help generate additional value. A person who works in a hospital should have far more than me. Should have far more than that person who just lays around the house, if that's what they do. Like, I should have a little bit more value than the person who just lays around the house, because minimum skill labor, I think, has a bit more value than no labor, and high skill labor has significantly more value than low skill labor. But, this right here, this is the important sentence. No one should have to struggle to survive. We are so far past that point. We technically live in a post-scarcity society. If you look at the amount of food produced per year, the amount of food wasted per year, the amount of clean water we can produce per year, we can feed everyone. Yeah, absolutely, no one should struggle to survive. You're right. Maybe I should actually do something to help them. Instead of just feeling self-conscious about how much I make here, I should let you get back to things. This sentiment right here is both good and bad. Maybe I should actually do something to help them. Absolutely. You should do something. But what do you do? What do you do to help other people instead of just feeling self-conscious about how much money you make? What you can do is support unions who fight for workers' pay. Not all unions do that, by the way. Some unions are genuinely bad. Some unions serve employer over employee. Some unions are just there to make sure that their wheel-spinning jobs are left around. Additional things you can do to help those lower than you, instead of just feeling self-conscious about how much you make, is to support initiatives such as universal base income, because universal base income gives people money regardless of their labor. It will prevent the sort of thing where people have to struggle to survive. Nobody should be out there feeling like they have to just scrape by. Nobody should have to be homeless. The only people who should be homeless are, the the wanderer types who are like, I don't want a steady place to live, and you should have that choice. Now, when you make that choice, should it be an eternal choice? No. They should be provided with the resources to settle down when eventually they choose to. But they should be the only people, the only time you should ever be homeless is when you choose to not have a home. So, if you feel like this guy, if you feel like Parker here, and you want to do something to help people, then what you have to do is get involved in initiatives to help increase the wealth of every person. This does mean increases on taxes, because, that's what taxes are there for. They're there to provide social welfare, whether it's on the state level, here in the US, or the province level in other countries, or on a federal level, regardless of where you are. You should be going out there and helping to fight for social welfare, helping to fight for public housing initiatives. We may not like the idea, and high-rises may be absolutely an eye blight, but the eye blight does not matter when it compares to the conditional blight of homelessness. We can build more housing, we can provide more housing, and we should be. And you should be fighting for initiatives like universal basic income. But I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.